Hello, and welcome to this sponsor webinar for grant projects funded through the Salmon section at the Recreation and Conservation Office. This project management and implementation information is relevant to the Salmon Recovery Fund Board, Bryan Abbott Fish Burial Removal Board, Estuary and Salmon Restoration Program, Washington Coast Restoration and Resiliency Initiative, and the Forest Family Fish Passage Program. Here are some of the topics we will be covering today. To maintain the integrity of the grant process, it's crucial that you complete the scope of work that you were evaluated and scored on. It's also important that you complete your project in a timely manner. Failure to meet milestones or complete the appropriate scope of work can result in breaches of contract or put your funding at risk. To help lead your project to a successful completion, RCO's website has resources to assist you. Each program has a webpage with the relevant manuals, forms, and links to agency-wide information needed for each project type, including some technical resources. The grant requirements page has links to things like our acquisition toolkit, and the post-award information page has milestone worksheets and links to our webinar recordings. Also, be sure to communicate with your grant manager early and often. We are here to answer your questions or problem solve if an issue arises. Every RCO agreement has a section with milestones to help your project stay on track. They establish your performance period and schedule important metrics or deliverables to meet throughout your project. Your milestones were created using the information you provided with input from your grant manager. They include critical or required milestones like progress reports, annual billing, and cultural resource requirements, and also standard milestones that depend on the project type and include things like appraisals and due diligence for acquisition or restoration design documents for a planning project. It's very important that you meet required milestones that provide approval to begin work on the ground. You must receive a notice to proceed from your grant manager or other lead agency for meeting your cultural resource requirements. This can include a signed inadvertent discovery plan or IDP, which will need to be on file with RCO. You must have site control and tenure. This means signed landowner agreements or land use authorizations, things that will give you permission to do the work on the property if it's not owned by the sponsor. You must also have any required permits obtained and any special conditions that might be in your agreement need to have been met, such as a condition for design review by the program's technical review group. It's absolutely crucial that you do not do any physical or ground disturbing work prior to meeting these requirements. You've already used Prism Online to submit your application, but you'll also want to become familiar with a few other features. The Billings tab is where you'll submit billings for reimbursement throughout the life of your project. These can be submitted on a cycle that best suits your needs. We ask for at least once a year, but no more frequently than monthly. The Progress and Final Reports tab is where you will create and submit your reports according to your milestone schedule. And there's a General Attachments tab where you can upload deliverables, photos, or additional documents that are required for your project. It also contains any of the application materials that you attached. If your project is required to provide a share of sponsor match, this amount will be included in your agreement budget and must be billed as non-reimbursable expenses in your billing in order to receive the full grant amount. Expenses that are eligible for match are paid for or donated by the sponsor or another entity and must follow the same eligibility rules of the program. They can include donated services, labor, materials, or equipment use, or the funds could be provided by a grant from another agency. Expenses must be documented just as any other reimbursable expense. They also must be eligible within the program, contribute to the same scope of work in the agreement, and fit within the same timeline of the project. PRISM will keep track of the match expenses billed with your reimbursement items and pay out based on the RCO share of the agreement. For more information, see the Reimbursement Manual 8 and your Grant Programs Manual. As part of efforts to modernize reporting of funding contributions, some programs may have a separate page in the application to report other funding sources outside of RCO. If your project does not require match but has other funding being used to implement the project, report the sources and types with total amounts at application, and then update in your final report. You can select a funding category from a drop-down list denoting the type of other funding contributions, such as in-kind, donated labor, other monetary, or RCO grants. Each category requires a drop-down selection of the funding type, such as services or land value, equipment value, or other state or federal grant. You can add multiple types as shown here. Leave this page blank if there are just no other sources of funding contributing to your project. Your agreement milestones will include a series of progress reports. We require 2 per year on a schedule that suits you. These are done through PRISM Online with a short series of questions and an opportunity to demonstrate accomplishments. You can update and comment on the status of milestones. You can say whether they're completed or delayed and explain why. Be sure to attach any required deliverables in PRISM before marking the related milestone complete. Report any restoration metrics achieved to date, if applicable. Progress reports are a great way to routinely check in with your grant manager and identify potential issues early on. Failing to complete your progress report milestones could lead to RCO withholding reimbursements, given that progress has not been demonstrated. During your project, issues may come up that require an amendment to your grant agreement. It is important to work closely with your grant manager as soon as something comes up. These can include a need for a time extension, a scope change, or even a cost change. Amendment requests must be submitted in writing to your grant manager. We have amendment request forms available, or you can include this information in your progress report. The requests must include the specifics of exactly what you are requesting, a detailed reasoning, including any alternatives that may have been considered, your current progress and timeline for the remaining tasks, and you can also include any additional information that might be helpful in the review process, and also documentation of any needed local approvals that your program might require. All amendment requests are reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and approval is not guaranteed. Different programs may require approvals from program technical groups, partner agencies, RCO director, or boards. Thanks for watching, and please visit our other sponsor webinars on YouTube for topics such as permitting, e-billing, cultural resources, applicant workshops by program, grant closeout, long-term obligations, and more.